After Effects CS6 has a couple of new features related to previewing your comps. I'm going to explain those new features, plus show you the two basic ways to preview comps in this lesson. So to follow along, go to Working Files and open up After Effects Projects and double-click on 0405 Preview. This project has one comp, and the comp has 4 layers: a text layer, an adjustment layer, a video file, and an audio file, some music. I want to view only the video file at the moment here, so I've got the 2 top layers turned off. The text layer would look like that, and the adjustment layer would kind of give it a warm look to it. So we'll turn those guys off for the time being. I want to view only this little video file. And there are a couple of ways to do that. I can do what's called the standard preview, also referred to in the vernacular as spacebar preview, which is what we'll call it, the spacebar preview. Or I can do RAM preview. So we'll start off with the standard spacebar preview. When you do spacebar preview, it's video only, no audio, and it attempts to play things back in real time, but it usually has a little trouble doing that as it plays it off the hard drive. The video playback in After Effects is a little bit different than you might find inside a nonlinear editor, so it might play back smoothly in Premiere Pro, but it won't necessarily play back smoothly in After Effects. It just works a little bit differently. So I'm going to press the spacebar here and see what happens. Notice that it starts playing back from where the current time indicator is located and goes forward from there. And if you view here, it says it's playing back at about 20, 21 frames per second, which is not real time. There are big red letters. Okay, I'll stop now. Now what happened? We have this little green bar that showed up here. The green bar is the video file that was created by the playback and stored inside RAM. This is a RAM cache issue. It stores this video file. It renders the video file and stores it in RAM. And normally when you talk about rendering a video, it means you're rendering the final output of your project to some video file that people can look at. But in this case, we're rendering the video file to a temporary storage place inside RAM. And the green thing now means that if we play it back by pressing the space bar, it should play back fairly smoothly as it comes off of RAM. We'll watch the numbers up here and see how close they are to 2997. 27, 28, 29, there we go, it's settling down. Pretty much 2997 straight across. It looks pretty much like real time as you watch it here in the comp panel. RAM preview is a little bit different. It does not attempt to play back in real time. It just attempts to store the rendered video in RAM, and when it's done storing it, then it'll play back in real time. And it'll play back with audio as well. RAM preview takes place over here in this preview panel. The thing is, though, you hardly ever visit this panel because you accept the defaults and use a keyboard shortcut when you do RAM previews. You hardly ever use the little button there to do the preview. You typically do the keyboard shortcut. That'll become second nature to you after a while. So the options here, they'll say, do you want to have a frame rate equal to the frame rate of your comp? The answer is usually yes. Do you want to skip any frames? The answer is usually no. And then do you want to have auto resolution? Yep, that's fine. So now I'm going to do a RAM preview, and I could click on this little button there to do the preview. But, it's better to use the keyboard shortcut because that's what you're going to do down the road. So the keyboard shortcut to do a RAM preview is the 0 key in the numeric keypad. Not the 0 key above the letters, but the 0 key on the numeric keypad. And if I press that, it's going to start RAM previewing from wherever it hasn't been cached yet. So it'll go to the beginning here and preview from here. It's going to get here and skip to over here and then continue making its RAM preview here. So I'll show you that by just pressing the 0 key on my numeric keypad. You'll start seeing this green bar growing right there. It's not trying to play back in real time. In fact, it's playing back kind of in chunks. Then it jumps here to the end, and I'm going to stop it. And then it's going to play back with audio. And I stopped on purpose because I wanted to leave a little bit there so we can do one more preview. If I click the 0 key again, it's not going to start playing it. It's going to finish the preview until it gets the whole comp previewed, and then it'll start playing it again. So I press the 0 key again. It's going to finish the preview, and now it'll play. All right, and it adds to that video file that was stored in RAM. So we added stuff at the beginning and the end of that file. Now it'll play back smoothly off of RAM. If I press the space bar now, it'll play back smoothly, more or less, pretty close. And there's no audio because that's what happens when you press the space bar preview. All right, I want to add a layer now, an adjustment layer. I'm going to turn on the adjustment layer to kind of warm it up a bit. And bam, the green bar goes away. That's because the rendered video file was not created with this extra feature added to it, this extra effect. So now if I do a RAM preview, let's see what happens here. Goes to the beginning, starts doing its previewing work. I'm going to stop it early here by pressing the 0 key again. It'll start playing it. Okay. I'll stop it by pressing the space bar. All right. And it stored it again as another video file. Now in previous versions of After Effects, if I were to, let's say, turn off the adjustment layer, then I'd have to preview the video file again. But what's great about After Effects CS6 is that it remembers that you previewed this video file without the adjustment layer. So I turn it off, you get a green bar across the entire thing. It remembers that this guy was previewed in RAM and pulls that thing up if you want to preview it again. If I go back and turn on the adjustment layer, it remembers that you previewed that much of it. How cool is that? I'm going to move in a little ways farther here and use my space bar to do a standard preview, a space bar preview. And it'll add that little bit of RAM cache as well as it plays back. I'll stop it now. So now if I turn this off and come back, there it is as I left it. These little green things along the way here showed up because I was doing a little scrub across there, like so, and it just created some more as I went by. By the way, if you want to have audio while you scrub, hold down the Control key in Windows or the Command key in Mac as you scrub, and you get some audio there. All right, let's add the text here. Once again, goes away because we have not done any previews with text. I'll pull it over here where the text comes on. I'll preview from here with the space bar. There we go. And we get that green bar again. And now if I play it back with the space bar, it'll play back smoothly. If I press the RAM preview, it'll jump ahead of that little green area and then jump after it. There we go. Press this 0 key again. All right. Now I'm going to turn off the text layer. And this is what was left of the preview with the adjustment layer above it. Turn off the adjustment layer. And it remembers that we did the preview here with the video file. If I turn on the text layer now, it'll be nothing because when we did the text layer, we did it in concert with the adjustment layer. So it doesn't really have a preview when it's just the text layer and the video layer. So you got to tell it, no, this is what we meant to do here. Now it remembers that we did all that work. I'm going to open up the text layer and change a keyframe. There we go. There's some keyframes here that I did to create this animation. I'm going to move this keyframe just a little bit. That will change everything such that the green guy goes away. It's no longer properly previewed anymore because I changed the keyframe. I'll close this down there. But if I turn off the eyeball, it still remembers that we worked inside the adjustment layer and still remembers that we worked inside the video file. That's pretty great. And if I press the 0 key again, it's going to jump to right here and do the preview again and fill in that gap. There we go. I'll press the 0 key again. Slight change to the animation. All right, so what's going on is that all this stuff is being stored in RAM, but it's also being stored on your hard drive if you accepted an option to have what's called persistent disk cache. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove all this RAM cache. I'm going to get rid of it. To do that, I go to Edit, Purge, Image Cache Memory. I'm going to click that, and the green thing's going to go away. But behind it, there's this blue stuff. The blue stuff indicates that you have now stored this preview on your hard drive, such that if I drag through here now, it'll play pretty smoothly off of the hard drive. If the hard drive is fast, it'll play smoothly. If it's not so fast, dragging through will actually be much smoother than normal. And in between here, it might get that kind of chunky looking stuff. It gets kind of fuzzy there a little bit. But back here, it'll be sharper because it's playing off the hard drive where it was stored in the persistent hard drive area. In between, it might get fuzzy there, but on the blue, it's going to come back sharply. If I turn off the eyeball here, it remembers that we stored this guy. There's only a little bit here because there wasn't much to store there. Go down to the bottom here, turn that one off. A little bit of blue stuff here that it remembers too, but mainly it remembers that this stuff up here we stored on the hard drive. And that's called persistent disk cache. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this project under a different name, put it under exercise files folder. So I go File, Save As. I'm going to go to the exercise files folder. So I'm going to go to the desktop, go into my After Effects exercise files and save this thing as persistent. Just to see how that works. Persistent, click Save. I'm going to get rid of the RAM cache just to make sure it's gone. Purge that again, all memory. Now I'm going to close this project. And now I'm going to reopen it. Go to my exercise files folder, click on this. And it'll come back with those blue guys again, indicating that it remembers that we stored this on the hard drive, kept that persistently, and it'll keep it there forever unless you clear out that media cache. So let me show you where it's saved and how to deal with that. Go to Edit, Preferences, or on a Mac, go to After Effects Preferences. This thing here called Media and Disk Cache. And I have enabled disk cache, and I've given it a size of 25 gigabytes for the maximum size. I can make it larger. If you're going to do this right, and I have not done it right here, but if you want to do it right, You want to have a separate hard drive that's as fast as you can get. The latest solid-state drives are pretty good choices. And then that's where this will be stored. So I've enabled it, and I've set the size here, and those guys will be stored there. I want to show you one more thing, too, under Memory and Multiprocessing. I want to render multiple frames simultaneously. If I do that, when I do my RAM previews, I can use more processors to do the RAM previews. So I'm going to change this from the 0 CPUs reserved for other applications. We'll have a couple of CPUs reserved for other applications. How much RAM per background CPU? 2 gigabytes is good if you're working with HD. You can use less if you don't have HD, but 2 gigabytes is kind of a sweet spot for HD. It'll use 2 CPUs to do my RAM previews, which is a good thing. It'll not only do the regular RAM preview where After Effects is running on one of the CPUs, but it'll use 2 more then to do this work by rendering it elsewhere. So it'll do it in chunks instead of just like 1 frame at a time. And make sure that I leave some RAM for other applications. I'll change this to 4 for other applications, leaving 8 for After Effects. And that should work pretty smoothly here on my system. So click OK now. So if I do RAM preview now, I want you to kind of look at the numbers here as they go along. I'm going to press the 0 key, and they're going to jump in the background here in chunks. You see how it's going in big chunks there? That's because we have multiple CPUs working here. All right, you see it's kind of jumping along in big chunks down here in the video as well. So that is how you do the 2 kinds of previews, standard and RAM. That's also how you adjust your preferences to make sure that things go a little more smoothly by enabling disk cache and also having more CPUs doing the background rendering of these RAM previews.